All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Tavern Talk Podcast with the co-host GHAZZY and special guest Mike from 11th Hour Games. One more time, Mike, thanks for coming back.
Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Yeah, man, it's exciting. It's the first chance to talk to you since the launch of 1.0. It's what it released February 21st, so 131 days, I believe, as of today. The game has been out now. And
Yep.
how has it been around the office since the release of 1.0?
I mean, I think there was a sense of relief when we got past all of the like major problems and we're like, okay, we're into our like this is what it's going to be for the next however many years, and we're like let's get to work and make some awesome stuff. I think it felt like getting back to what we've been doing for a few years now through early access, and we're just kind of past that hurdle, and it feels natural, it feels normal again, and it's been really nice.
Nice to hear. I mean, I'd like to take a second to just ask you about the experiences since launch. Like, what was the one thing that you've been proud of with the full release of the game? And what was the one thing that you've learned since launch?
I mean, the bajillion things we've learned. I don't know what the biggest one is, but I think there's been a lot of stuff in like how we've released content to people, and how we've like shared content from the game and like what's coming. And I think a lot of that recent things we've learned have been really good. I don't know what I've been most proud of. I mean, I think just the sheer volume of people that show up on like Reddit or Discord or Facebook or Twitter or any of those places that are just like I've been playing this game, and I like they share their build, even if it's just like one sentence, and it's just like I really love the werebear I've been playing, and it felt really great. Like, just I think that is what I've been most proud of, is that people are having fun and they have specific things they can point to with what is fun.
You know, speaking of the werebear, someone mentioned before we started the podcast that they wanted the dodge mechanic when you're the werebear to have him roll, like do like a bear roll. Is that something you guys
Yeah,
you think that could be coming?
yeah.
That'd be pretty
I
fun.
the all of the characters and all the transforms have a custom evade animation that goes
Oh,
with
cool.
their version of it. So it's all a little different for every single one of them. Like the mage does like a little magical floaty jump forward, but the sentinel and the bear do like a more of like a over the shoulder roll type thing. So
Roly
yeah,
poly.
it's good, and it's nice that they're like specific for each one.
So one of the before the launch of the game, one of the biggest hype factors around the game, you guys released a lot of information around the market and the two faction system and how the bazaar was going to go, etc. So what my question for you is now that the game's been out a while, did the economy play out in the way you guys expected it to? And do you think that all that pre-planning and kind of innovation in terms of how you guys were handling the market really paid off? What's your thoughts about that current situation now, 130 days later?
Yeah, so I think there was a pretty huge road bump we hit in the middle of that. And if that didn't happen, I'd be extremely happy with how things have played out right now. I think the for everyone is unaware, I'll own it. This problem happened. It was not ideal. We fixed it extremely quick, but the damage was pretty intense right away. There was a dupe glitch that was found.
Yeah.
I think it was live for just under a day type thing, after it was like discovered, and there was a lot of money got dumped into the economy that wasn't really supposed to be there. And we've been recovering it. It's tricky to recover an economy like that after like as player numbers are changing, as they're going down.
Sure.
It's really difficult to like massage that economy back to where it's supposed to be. And we pulled most of the money back out, and it's like it's in a good spot now. There was just like those few weeks where it was problematic at best. But I'm really happy with how the two factions played out, and I think that like going forward, I think it's gonna be a huge success as far as there's also some mechanical changes we have to make to it. So there's like some quality of life stuff with how you interact with the bazaar and how you interact with the economy in general, and Circle of Fortune too. So like both sides have a ton of changes coming for how you interact with them, what rewards they give, the pacing of those rewards, how they're shareable between characters, between accounts. There's all sorts of little tweaks that we've had to make that it's just from the feedback we got from the players. A huge part of this patch 1.1 that we knew going in that we were reserving a huge part of our time for just feedback. And feedback on this faction system is a huge part of that. So yeah, there's a big post coming in the not too distant future that will have a lot of those details laid out very clearly, exactly what's coming and changing in that that front. It's going to be, I think cycle 2 on this economy is going to be really good. I think cycle 1 was good, and cycle 2 is going to be really good.
That's kind of got to be the nice thing about having this cycle is when something like that happens in the economy, you're not, okay, well, this cycle might have a problem, but you get another fresh shot at it going into the next one.
Yeah. And it didn't happen until like, I think most people had we were already past the like halfway point of like numbers happening. So it was already like, I think a lot of people didn't experience it, which was good as well. Didn't experience the problem.
I wasn't even aware actually until you brought it up.
Whoops.
I didn't actually know about the dupe either. I remember the keys selling for a ridiculous amount of gold. I remember that part.
Yeah.
But
we
on
had
the
to fix
topic
that.
of, I remember that because people were panicking. Now I was a COF gamer, so kind of whatever.
No problem.
So the other question I was thinking about was actually the current state of Endgame. So I'm going to read it out loud here so I don't miss any details on this because it's kind of a big question. So current state of the Endgame is mainly pushing as high corruption as possible, with the aspirational side content being an endless arena. Now, moving forward, is this the type of endgame content that EHG wants the player base to engage with as an endgame content?
Yeah, I think so. I think so yes, it is the type of content we want people to engage in. I think that there's a lot of room for adding more content in, which is what we're doing. I think there's a major endgame piece coming to every major patch that we've talked about in our we put a little roadmap for the next four major patches, and every single one of them in the roadmap has an endgame content piece listed as one of the major things coming for that patch. And I think that's a really important thing, is that like the stuff we have is the sort of content we want people to be engaging with, and we just need more of it. We need more variety. We need more cool stuff to do, and I think what we're going to see is a little bit of a shift in how people engage with Endgame a lot of times, and they're still going to be pushing corruption. That's still an important part of it for sure. Having that Pinnacle boss now that's coming in 1.1, I think that's going to be a huge shift in how people engage with the end game. It's going to be like very much a benchmark, like how efficient can I make this kill type of way to engage with the end game. Like you're building your character up, you're trying to make it as powerful as possible, and one of the ways you express that is by doing as hard a content as you can. But it's also how fast you can do fixed difficulty content as well, I think. So there's just a little more variety we're adding in, and also with the nemesis that are coming in, that's going to make the pushing corruption, I think, more fun and more interesting. More that are coming in next cycle and next cycle and next cycle.
That's fair. I do have a couple of follow-up questions to this, because it's kind of a big topic, right? And you mentioned inflation, but before I touch upon that specific part of it, the other question I had was that the current state that we saw in 1.0 was that people were pushing thousands of corruption, right? And my understanding was that the idea was that a good build was doing about 200 corruption and a great build was doing 300 plus corruption. Yet we see builds doing 2, 3, 4,000 corruption. Even solo, after nerfs were in balance changes, we're doing 1,900, 2,000 corruption. Is this where we want to see the game, or are there any plans to solve in that one way or another?
Yeah, I think that it did get out of control a little bit, and that is something we are intending on solving. This is something that we are planning on reeling in, and you'll see all of those changes coming in for 1.1 that will sort of bring things back to reality. The hard part with it is that how do I say this? We want people to be able to keep pushing corruption and keep like, okay, I got better gear, keep pushing, keep going harder and harder. The rate that it was increasing difficulty at versus the rate that players could push their defenses at was the big problem. And it was the amount of damage increase. It basically just meant as high as you can push your defense, as high as the corruption you can do. And we are definitely changing how those defensive layers work, so that the super high-end versions of those defensive layers are definitely dropping off faster than they were before, because it is you do get in situations where people are saying, okay, I'm going to push corruption for the next 8 hours and make it a quarter of the way to the top spot that people are at, and it's just too long. We're not we don't want people to have like pushing corruption just be this endless grind where it's like my character can do more, but I'm just going to keep pushing because I can't. The game doesn't let me go do more faster. That makes any sense? Like, it's the amount of corruption you could get per hour was so low that we don't want players to be able to have to feel forced to. That's the way. We don't want players to feel forced to be pushing in hours and hours and hours of corruption grinding just to get a little bit higher on that number. The systems we have built and the way that that corruption advances, it's really designed to be in those hundreds of corruptions, not thousands of corruptions. And we want numbers to stay in that range.
That's good. It's like I want to revert back to the inflation topic, which is mainly hurt with the dupe, right? It's something we saw experience a lot when it comes to the market side of things, was that you had a build that played around 200, 300, 400 corruption, and you felt like you were so far behind the people that were doing thousands of corruption. They were dropping so much more, emphasizing down on the market inflation. But I mean, these changes and these adjustments to corruption being much harder to achieve will then also impact that market impact that has on the game as well.
Yeah, I think the major changes are to player power. There's some changes to how corruption works, but not a ton. So it's mostly we're focusing on the abilities and the builds that exist. All right. Make those changes.
Just a few quick follow-ups on this as well before we move on. So I'm taking all the time here.
Keep going, yeah.
So I think the only question I really have is the idea of it being an endless content, similar to the arena, right? Are there any thoughts or considerations about capping corruption, or is it meant to be like a Greater Rift area similar to the arena? Like, what's the plans there or thoughts? If you could elaborate.
Yeah, we've talked about capping it a few times, and it's one of those things we kind of go back and forth on. And I don't know if we have all I can really say is in 1.1 there won't be a cap, I guess is really all it is. It's not a forever off the table option, because there are some really good things that putting a cap to it does, and it's kind of similar to what putting a Pinnacle boss in the game does. Is that you have this you have this content that, like, okay, you've hit the cap, your character has hit that point, you've got it, like that's that threshold you've hit, and now it's less about how high can I push, but how fast can I push that top content. And so it's, if we can have both in the game and have them both be fun and engaging, that's ideal. Because there are some people that like just want to keep pushing a little bit higher, a little bit higher, a little bit higher. But you're right, there is definitely issues that come in. What you're talking about with some people, some builds being so much higher above others, and the rewards being proportional such that they are causing a vergence in the economy. You know, where someone shows up and they're like, okay, well, I'm 10 times richer than the next person because my build is able to push higher than the next person. They can cause problems in the economy for sure. So we do a lot of things in the way we've implemented the economy to make it so that a like an early and mid tier market still exists, even if there is this situation that arises where these items still are, they hold value because of the limited amount that you can interact with the economy. People who are coming up in the economy with you will interact at that same level with you, and we're making changes there. that's something. Yeah, that's something that's going to be coming in 1.1, where there's going to be changes in how you advance through that economy progress as well.
Any changes you care to share in particular?
Nothing I can say yet.
All right, I had to try. All right, so speaking of 1.1,
it's always worth a shot. Always ask.
I always got to try. You don't get it if you don't ask. So speaking of 1.1, the Harbingers, I keep wanting to say Harbingers for some reason, but the Harbingers of Ruin is the very first psycho sort of the game mechanic we're seeing, which brings a very obvious question. So with these sort of mechanics for the psychos, are we planning to see these consistently be added back to the core game, or what's your guys' thoughts about having some of these be psycho specific?
Yeah, I think we're looking to the future and having some more cycle specific content. But right now, with the state of like just the amount of content in the game, the feedback we're getting from players saying, "Hey, we love this game, we love the things you can do, but we need more stuff to do."
Sure.
And to help people who are not interested in playing in the cycle still have enough stuff to do, at least in the start, we are planning on 1.1. The content's just for everyone. Here we go. Yeah, it's just everyone gets everything. Other than the only thing is there's a slight delay on the actual Pinnacle boss fight. The Pinnacle boss fight in 1.1, you can't challenge that in offline or Legacy until someone beats it online in Cycle. Then the next day it opens for everyone. So it's the only piece you can like from the Harbingers. You can get your bunch of eyes ready. You can get your build prepped. All the balance changes are there. Everything's there, and you just like that. Just that last door just won't unlock until someone beats the boss in online Cycle.
That's a cool way of
so I
doing
think
that.
yeah, it's this is our like first little step in that direction, I think, where we're saying, hey, like we want to incentivize people to have a reason to play Cycle. We want there to be cool things to do, but we recognize that the game's not quite ready for that yet.
I'm assuming the reason you want someone to clear it on online is so people don't like mod out their offline character and then immediately blast it immediately, type of thing. That's actually a pretty smart way of doing it. So speaking of this Pinnacle bosses, actually, that's sort of the focus for the 1.1 cycle. And in the announcement that you talked about, you said that the Harbingers are going to gain some of the abilities of the timeline bosses, is from our understanding. But I don't think it was brought down in detail. Do you have any more details of that part of it you care to share?
I don't think I'm going to like full details on exactly what's happening, but basically I can give a vague description of it, I think.
Yeah.
So once you finish a monolith boss, once you beat that monolith boss, you have and under certain circumstances you'll get ambushed by a Harbinger. And that Harbinger has its own set of abilities. It has its own like moveset, all that sort of stuff. But then it takes some of the abilities from the boss you just killed.
That's cool.
And it incorporates those into its repertoire. So there's like Lagon Harbinger, and there's a like all of the other bosses. There's a Harbinger that goes with it, and so it's they're each a little bit. The way they behave with those other abilities makes the fights a little bit different.
It kind of brings me to a follow-up question that I'm kind of curious about. So when you were kind of implementing and developing this, where it kind of takes different timeline bosses and metamorphoses them together into it, did you guys run into any issues where it's like you take this timeline boss ability and this one, and it makes like a major problem that players can't get past or something?
Well, so it only takes from one boss at a time.
Okay.
So we sidestepped that problem right there. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, that makes sense then.
There was a little bit of a tricky time picking which abilities were going to come from the bosses and having them flow nicely with the way the AI works for enemies and the abilities that it already has. So like the way our AI works for enemies is it's basically just a big list of abilities. And then they have a priority. The one at the top, it tries first. It says, hey, is there an enemy in range that I can use this on? Great, use it. Nope. Okay, next ability. It just goes down the list of off cooldown abilities. And it just goes through that list. And so like figuring out how to inject the special abilities that it's grabbing from the monolith boss in the right order so that it plays nicely and feels good no matter which boss it's drawn from. That was tricky.
Really?
I didn't
Like, is Lagon supposed to be like this huge Harbinger at the side of this arena, or does he become like a unity fight in the circular area down below?
Like there's a new I haven't done that in a while. I don't know if it shows up at the top or the bottom. I think it shows up at the top because that's where you are at the end of the fight. Yeah.
Fair enough.
Oh yeah, it has to show up at the top because the ability it gets. Yes, it shows up at the top.
Oh, because of the ability he gets. Okay. Okay. Speaking of new things, the new faction, Forgotten Knights, coming in. Should we be expecting many more factions in the future to be gated behind the cycle contents, or is this like a rare occurrence?
Well, so this one is I mean, like it kind of is just part of the cycle content itself, which is all going to Legacy at the same time too. So it's not you're not locked out of being in that faction. We definitely designed the faction system as a whole to be very modular and to have us be able to just like add in new factions on cycles, and that is definitely something we are planning on adding in more of. Sometimes we've got them planned out to be used as an individual faction, like the one we've done here, or as maybe pairs or triplets in the future, where you have just other like little groups of factions to show up to work with new mechanics that we bring in for cycles. We think it's going to be a really good way for us to have familiar UI that people can interact with quickly and understand what's happening quickly, and lay out the bonuses and the things you get and the costs and have all that like really become familiar part of the UI, but still be able to use it for many different mechanics. And it is something we are planning on reusing and continuing to add more to. So you'll see more factions coming in the future. I don't think we have another one planned for 1.2, but it's a ways off. Yeah.
Fair. I like the idea of it, at least. Other things that come in is the Pinnacle boss, like we talked about. It's been introduced to 1.1. It's meant to be the hardest boss to fight to the game, to date in the game, rather. But there was this decision to fight it 1 week later. What was the decision, or could you walk us through the decision making from having this idea to actually coming to the idea that we're gonna do this delay?
Yeah. Okay. So this was a while. This was quite a while that we had to like figure this out. There was a lot of meetings. I think we kind of got to the point where we wanted people to. I think it comes all the way back to, hey, we've made this really cool boss with all these really cool mechanics and these interesting things to do in it that are like it's almost like a puzzle to solve, and doing that at a set, like through the progress of getting those items and working through the cycle content and like getting to the boss and beating it, having that journey be the end of that journey, without having a necessarily a guide to go for it at the very start, was something that we really wanted. And we debated having it be a fully cycle locked content for a long time. And I think it was more that we, instead of saying, hey, we're going to lock just the boss for a week, I think it was more like, hey, we're going to open it up to everyone after a week, is more the way we're looking at it. And it's just what DM was saying earlier about having the like, like if we launched it for everyone right away, having them come in with offline characters or legacy characters that are just completely decked out on day one, hammering through the Harbingers, hammering through the boss, it's done, it's dead. And then there's like videos up on YouTube, like day one, and people who are like still leveling on their cycle are like, oh, that's the boss I'm working towards, and there's someone killing it. And I think we wanted to like bring a little bit of that journey of a new cycle happening to the game as a community.
A little bit of like a community event, if you will.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's kind of like how that idea started, and before you came up with this specific solution to that, I guess.
Yeah. I don't remember who like suggested that specific version of it, but there was a lot of brainstorming. So there's a lot of ideas being thrown around on exactly how we were going to do that. We did put out a survey to the community about a month ago now, I think, maybe a month and a half, 2 months ago, where we're basically just like, hey, this is like some options we're batting around. What do you guys think? And the way we use these surveys is, because this is the second time we've done a big survey like that. And the way we use them is like, we treat the survey as like an extra person in the meeting, an extra seat at the table, that it's like, we don't just go off of what the survey does. But if the survey happens to come back with the results that we were like, this is what we're planning, real nice, because that's exactly what happened. We're like, hey, it's what we were planning on doing. And the community was like, we agree. We're like, great. And we know not everyone's super on board with it. And we are definitely interested in people's feedback, especially when we do something weird like this, like with the item factions. Did something weird, and like we really look to feedback, and then you're going to see a ton of that feedback into action in 1.1. And it's the same thing with this cycle launch and how we're rolling that out. We're really interested in feedback on it. And we're going to make changes to it for next cycle, and we're going to evolve that process.
So something you said made me just kind of think of a random question here that I didn't have the list, but I'm curious about. So when the Pinnacle boss is supposed to be, Pinnacle content, it's supposed to be difficult, right? So when you're designing this Pinnacle boss and you're thinking about difficulty in mind, how are you approaching the difficulty? Are you thinking it from a time perspective, where you mentioned, I don't want to see people seeing it on day one type thing? Are you thinking this is content we want it to take 7, 10, 12 days to get to a point to get it? Or are you thinking it from like a gear perspective, where it's like, I want these guys to have maximum gear, be fully loaded? What's the thought process you're having in terms of meshing difficulty, with where people are going to be at in the launch of a new season, or cycle, I should say?
Yeah. 6 of 1.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a very difficult balancing act to hit the sweet spot on. And I think that it's sort of a mix of everything you just said. So there's like certain things that we have in the progression to getting it, like you have to complete your Harbinger's journey. So you have to kill all the 10 Harbingers, and then there's like then you gain access to the boss fight, and there's stuff that happens in the boss fight and all that sort of stuff. So there's like, there are things you have to do in the game that do extend that time, where you can't just like patch drops, knock on the boss's door, I'm fighting him. There are some things there that we do to have that journey be a little bit longer. We don't really want to have it artificially stretched just as like busy work though. So there are things in the boss fight, like you can definitely unlock and start fighting that boss well before your character is really ready to do it. And a big part of why that's like that is we tried to incorporate like skill mechanics into the boss fight as well. So there's things like there's things that'll happen in that Pinnacle boss fight where if you're under geared, you can play really, really, really skilled and really, really awesome, and it doesn't matter that you're as under geared. You'll be able to, like, you learn the fight, you learn the mechanics, you can. There's some neat little things, little micro optimizations you can do to make that fight a little bit easier. And then, like, as you get deeper into the cycle, and people's gears gets better and things like that, you'll start to see people being able to fight the boss and ignore those little micro optimizations and things they can do to make the fight easier because their gear is better and their gear is just picking up that slack for them. So I think it's the having that journey and stretching that time out is more about just giving players different avenues to go on it. And if they're like really just gunning for it hard and they want to practice and just be the best at it themselves and push as hard as they can. And people who are, hey, I'm going to grind out my gear a little bit more and the fight's going to be a little bit easier because of that, they can do that as well. And I think we're trying to make that journey fun and enjoyable for different types of players. I think that's the key thing.
And the reward at the end of it. So you go through all this challenge, you prepare the fight, you fight the Pinnacle boss. Are we expecting gated content behind this in terms of like reward acquisition? You don't think so?
No, I think the rewards that are there are awesome, and they're gonna let you do some cool stuff. And there's some items that are really interesting there, and there's some neat things. But I think we've been really careful to keep the items that you're getting as rewards from the Pinnacle boss from being build enabling items and more of just like, hey, I'm even more powerful now. I think my personal example that I always came back to when we were talking about what we were going to put back there is always like the Hellfire Torch in Diablo 2, I think is an almost perfect example of what to do with something like this. Because it is a super powerful item. It's, for anyone who doesn't know, Diablo 2, if you kill a Pinnacle fight, it's an idol, a charm that gives you a bunch of static stats, like skills, resistances, attributes, and nothing specific to any one character per se. It does class specific, but it doesn't matter. The point is that that's a style of stuff I think that works really well in a Pinnacle boss reward, where it's like, hey, this is a very powerful item, and I don't need it to turn my build on, but oh, does it feel good when I equip it?
One last follow-up for you with the Pinnacle. Now I'm passing it over to GHAZZY here. When it comes to this Pinnacle content, I know it's probably hard to look and design a boss where it's supposed to be the most difficult, but at the same time expect everyone realistically to be able to clear it. So what was the thought process for you guys, and like what percentage of the audience you want to be able to actually get to and clear this content? Because I know it's probably a hard decision to make, right?
I don't think we have a hard percentage like oh, this percent needs to be able to do it, something like that. I think it's going to be a very difficult thing to finish for most players. And I think a lot of times that like people like you guys, people like that are playing a lot of ARPGs that are sinking their teeth in really deep and are experienced and are trying really hard to beat all of the content and things like that. I think it's really easy to picture the majority of the audience in that sort of category. But I think the vast majority of people won't get to it, I don't think. And I don't think that's a really for lack of us making it accessible necessarily. I think it's just there's a bit of a time investment to get your character up powerful enough to be able to attempt it in the first place. And just like things in the end game that are even before that now, because there's most people aren't even finishing what end game there is now, really. And so I think anyone can be good enough at the game to be able to do it. And it's just going to be how much time investment to get your character powerful enough to be able to do it as well and like when I say time investment, it's time investment doing content that's already fun and like engaging and things like that. It's not just like, hey, I'm going to grind out 100,000 runs of this one thing so that I eventually have a character. Like, I'm not going to sit in the forest killing boars for a week, you know?
Okay, I lied. One last question, because I keep coming up with things I'm super curious about when you're talking about this. So, in terms of having more Pinnacle content, when you add more Pinnacle content in the game like this, and you said yourself that not everyone's finishing all the current in-game content that's within the game, do you feel that adding content above what the current Pinnacle is in the game brings up the floor, where because there's aspirational content, people tend to play longer and have longer retention in the game as a chase goal, even if they never get to the Pinnacle boss? It might increase the overall retention of an audience within the game. Is that something that you tend to see in your data?
I think so. I don't think we have enough data of releasing content like that to draw a direct correlation yet.
Sure.
Um, but I think that's a very reasonable hypothesis or idea. I think that's especially when you also at the same time start adding in content like so the Nemesis content that we're adding in. You'll start to see that very early. You'll see that in the campaign. Like almost everyone's going to be engaging with that, and that's going to actually help boost people up a little bit faster. It's going to help them get up into that higher content a little bit faster. And I think having just more engaging content along the way as well, like you say, is just going to have people are going to be having more fun with the game, so they're going to stick around longer, and they're going to be able to play higher and higher content. And it's just, I mean, the better the game plays and the better the game works, I think the more people are going to stick around to play it. I don't think the more fun it is, the more people are going to play it, right? Like,
True.
Hopefully.
All right, sorry guys, you
Hopefully
go
not.
on. I've asked like 15
No, it's all
I
good.
got curious.
I mean, that's all good. We just get, any follow-up questions, we're just gonna hammer them out. We did make a little list of questions. That's what we're reading off a little document here. On the topic of like player replayability or longevity, it comes into a little bit of class balance question. So this question has to do about the fact that there's a handful of classes or masteries that don't have the entire toolkit yet. The fourth ability, if you will, for example, the Lich has their master skill in 3, but they're lacking an ability, and it's kind of limiting in build guide or build design in general. So
Yep.
the question to get to the point here is: do you have an estimated timeline for when we can expect to see all of the classes having their entire kits ready to be used?
Yeah, so we had this idea about year or two ago that we kind of gave up on, which was um, all the characters need to have a set number of abilities and a fixed like we our goal for 1.0 launch. This was 2 years ago, probably at this point. Was like every character has a fixed number of abilities. Like there's was it 4 that are unlocked in passives, 10 that are in base on your class. Just you get as you level up your base class, and then 5 per mastery. One mastery ability, and then 4 unlock in the passive tree. And that I think that's right. I might be off by 1 in one of those counts, but the idea that there's this like set amount of abilities that every class was going to have was something that we had planned. And somewhere around when we were making Rune Master, we kind of scrapped that idea and we're like, never mind. Anyone can have anything type thing. And that decision came when we actually plucked one of the invocations from Rune Master out and made it its own skill, which was how Frostclaw became. So you may notice that Mage as a base class has more base class abilities than any other base class now. And so we're not really fixed on, hey, every class needs to be exactly the same. However, we do plan on focusing on the ones that don't have as many abilities first for new abilities to come in. So like Shaman's missing one, Paladin's missing one, Marksman's missing one, Blade Dancer's missing one, Rogue's missing 2 in the base class, I think still. Like so there's a lot of little ones missing here and there to bring them up to that point that we would have had before. And we do plan on adding more abilities. 1.1 will be the first major patch we've ever released. I think it's the first one ever that we never adding 0 new skills in, which is kind of weird. But we're really focusing on some other gameplay elements, making the boss awesome, and the people who work on skills have been working a lot on like bug fixing and shoring up the ones that we have, and bringing up like adding some new abilities to some old skills, making new items, things like that. So we're really focusing on like feedback and improvements and bug fixes. So many bug fixes, and things like that. But going forward, 1.2, 1.3, you're going to start seeing new abilities pop back up again into those patch notes coming out, new abilities. And I don't know when we're going to get full like every class to that point of what was like that 1.0 benchmark we talked about earlier. But they're gonna start coming back in, and the classes that are feeling it that you guys are feeling need more. We're very much aware of which ones need more, and they'll be coming in too.
Well, that's good news. Another question we had was about crafting, which have seen a handful of iterations. I was surprised to see the last change you guys did to it. So it's like, it was already good. What are you guys doing? But it landed on a very enjoyable state, I must say. However, we're still unable to craft certain items, one of these being idols. Are there any considerations to allow idols to be crafted in the future?
Yes. Idols are sort of on the list of, hey, one day we're going to be able to have some way to modify these. Definitely. I 1.1 will not have it. Sorry, tell you that right now. No 1.1 idle crafting. Sorry. But yes, there is a patch in the future that will introduce a way that you can modify your idols in some way. I don't know what that's going to look like exactly, whether that's like through the actual crafting system of like, hey, like glyphs and shards and things like that, or maybe that might be more of like a dungeon reward or like a new mechanic that comes for a new cycle. Maybe there's like some cycle mechanic that's focused all around idols, and like there's things there's different ways we can introduce idol crafting, and it is something that we are interested in doing. It's kind of I'd say a piece we're holding in our pocket now, so that we can have it released later as a big feature that's unique in itself, where it's not just, hey, it's just like every other item crafting. It's all the same as that one. No, it's like it's its own interesting special thing.
Follow up to that, just a quick yes and no question. Set idols?
We don't have any.
Don't have any, but is that a yes it's coming or a no it's not coming? I need a yes or no on it.
We don't have any planned. We don't have any set idols that are like, hey, this is a designed one ready to go or anything like that. It's not off the table. Okay. Sets in general, sets in general are another thing that needs some love and some mechanical adjustments and some updates to the way that system works. And we do have a big plan there, and it's possible that the things that we are planning for sets could interact with idols, and like maybe there's set idols and things like that's the way they function. I guess what I'm trying to say is the way that idols function in the code, it is possible to make set idols. We don't have any planned right now, but it is something that we could conceivably do.
That's fair, because the follow-up question I had, or rather the next question I had to do with set items. Now, we had the introduction of legendary items with LP, and now they made the set items lessen in value drastically. They surely need some actual loving. I mean, proper loving. But what's the plan to make them attractive? Like, do you have anything you can share on that department? Because I was looking at the roadmap, and I saw the word primordial uniques, and my mind immediately went to, is that going to be set items with LP? Anything you can share?
So the one thing I can't tell you much. We do have a very we have a pretty firm plan for what we're going to do for set items that we have. Sorry, that was just.
You got it, boys.
You got it in my head. No, we do have a solid plan for what set items are going to be. It's not something that I can share exactly how it's going to work right now. It is not going to be LP directly onto the set items. That's something that we batted around for a while and decided that it was not going to be positive for the system. So we've cut that out as an option. There will not be LP on set items. And we do have a set plan for it, huh? And it's it's an accident. We're not ready to share it just yet. But it is coming. Primordial uniques are something different. It is unrelated.
Okay.
But very cool.
On the topic, set idols, we've heard it here first.
Set idols confirmed, coming in 2024 on the next patch.
I think it's a great idea. Like, even if it's just like a piece of the set is just in your idol inventory, I think that's a great idea.
Confirmed again. So speaking of balance around set items and all that, how about balance around classes? Do you guys have a philosophy or set goals in mind? Or are you trying to have it be like one build for each class per cycle is going to be the meta, and then you're purposely sort of moving that around? Or what's your guys' philosophy when it comes to meta around class balance and builds?
Yeah, so I think it's as much as possible. It's there's not like a, hey, everyone needs at least one or something like that. It's just how many awesome builds can we fit into everything. And a lot of it is just like making tools that we think, hey, someone might be able to make a build with this one day. And like it could be like a throwaway leveling unique that you don't think much of, and 6 months down the road, someone's like, I've got an idea. Run with it, buddy. Go. But yeah, I think we try to target gaps in play fantasy. So if someone's like, I really want to be a sword and board warrior type character, it's like very, very like a very straightforward standard character type thing. Like that's the fantasy I want to evoke when I'm playing this game. We want to make sure that there's a way somewhere in the game for you to get that class fantasy and have fun playing the way you want to play. And I think that's where we start a lot of times when we're looking at what needs to be added as far as like brought up. It's less around like, hey, does Sentinel have enough viable builds? It's more of, hey, are there any class fantasies that are just like missing completely? That's where we start.
How about usually a cat handler class? How about one of those?
I mean, it looks like you're already mastered in it.
Yeah, unfortunately, my friend, it's an all-day deal with this animal.
Yeah, my wife's live up there, this floor above me, not down in my office, luckily. But yeah,
fair enough. On another topic, we talked about loot filter improvements, such as showing uniques with XLP. Now, I did see the official statement on the forums, which was covering how we're expecting to look at fewer items, not only what we're going to pick up, so that we have to assess whether or not it is an improvement or not for us. However, to follow that up, the current loot filter goes heavily against this already. My personal experience is after a certain level of the content, I will only look at items. Let's take a sword, for example. If it's not that specific one-handed sword base, I will not see it on the loot filter whatsoever. So these things make the loot filter so effective for me to play, and I love that approach because I don't have to interrupt my gameplay to look at the items. Oh, is it the right base or is it something I'm actually going to want? But this does not work on the Circle of Fortune explosions of hundreds of helmets. I just want to see the ones who have LP or not. Has this answer that was made on the forums changed, or are you guys doubling down on the fact that you don't want this?
I don't think the answer's changed at all. However, I do think that there is as the game evolves, there's definitely some wiggle room there in what that means. So yeah, I think COF. Just a second, just to make sure I can say this.
Don't want to leak.
Starting to sound like me. They can't break.
I've been typing to someone this whole time while I've been talking. You may not have noticed, but So I think there is room for LP filtering to get into the loot filter here now. Specifically, as you say, because of COF. So as the game evolves, as what's dropping changes, that idea of, hey, maybe it doesn't filter everything perfectly, but it gives you like a really, really good leg up in filtering type things where it's like you're filtering almost everything, maybe not everything. That still is something we are interested in. And as the number of with COF especially, there's this huge spike in situations where like, hey, you're getting a bajillion items and it's not doing an adequate job filtering it. So we've kind of swung backwards too far. And so we're going to be bringing that up a little bit with some LP filtering and things like that. There are some changes to the loot filter coming along with that. So you will be able to do. I think it just says if it has LP or not.
That's a good start. Are we talking about this for 1.1 or later?
Yep.
Oh, nice. Nice.
Yeah. I guess I could have said, yeah, sure, okay.
Yeah. I'm liking this already.
So we're getting to... Oh,
yeah,
sorry. Go on. You have some...
No, I was going to go to the next one, so you go.
Yeah. So we're getting just a quick thing for the chat here real quick. We're getting towards the end of this here. So put questions in the chat. We're going to do a Q&A portion at the end of this. EHG's in the chat picking up your questions. So if you have any of them, they're making a list of these. We'll be going into the Q&A portion here very shortly. So this is just a call out for you guys. Tag, yeah, you can see him. He's in the chat there. Tag EHG Fulton. How you pronounce that, Mike?
I say Photon.
Photon.
Like Photon. I could possibly have that wrong. Yell at me, DM me if I'm wrong on how I'm saying that. But yeah, I say Photon like physics particle.
Okay,
Photon.
That makes sense. That's why I was thinking for some reason I think Fontaine.
Photon is right. Yeah, you said that. Yeah, okay, good.
So tag the boy with any of your questions you have, and we'll go into the Q&A portion here shortly. So we had one question for you, kind of just a generic question. But besides the 1.1 launch, what are you personally looking forward to the most? I know you can't really release, we're not trying to dig for any additional spoilers more than what we've already gotten today, but we're kind of curious, what are you personally looking forward to the most with the progression of Last Epoch and developing it?
I mean, so I had a realization of a few weeks ago on when I do my Friday weekly stream, and I had a little realization because someone asked me something similar, I think actually, or came to, but I realized that after not making any skills, because I didn't there was no new skills to make for 1.1. I was like, that's the thing. That was the question: is what did you miss most about this recently or something? And I really missed not making any skills for 1.1. And so what I'm really excited about myself is getting back to being able to make skills again in the like coming patches. So I'm really excited about that coming up. And there's like we've teased a few little changes to the skill system as well for a few patches down the road in that roadmap, and I'm really excited about that one too.
Fair enough. I had a question regarding official patch notes when.
When they're ready,
Yeah.
we the way our patch development works is we're like, okay, we're gonna set aside this time to do patch notes before the patch, and because everyone's working on so many different things that it's sometimes like you finish a feature, you push the PR, you put your patch notes thing in there, and sometimes it's not quite perfect, it's not quite written out right, or something gets lost in translation a little bit here and there. And so after we've locked the patch, like locked the content for the patch, everyone who's been working on it goes back and reads through the patch notes that have been compiled, and you find any things you worked on, and you edit those patch notes to be just right and everything like that. And so there's a few days after we content lock the patch before we can release the patch notes, because they're just not finished yet. They're just not ready. They don't look pretty. And so we're in that stage right now of like we're trying to lock the patch down right now, and then we're gonna start. Everyone's gonna switch gears to just working on patch notes, and once that's finished and ready, we'll release them. But yeah, they're just not ready yet. I don't know when they'll be ready, but we're gonna try and get them out as quick as we can because we know people are really excited for them.
Guys, you're trying really hard today to get as many spoilers as possible. Okay, so we have our list here. Looks like EHG's got a pretty solid list of questions that the chat's been asking since the start. So we'll start diving into those here if you are ready. But before, I know there was one thing you wanted to share. Do you want to talk about the screenshot now, or you want to do that at the very, very end?
We can do that now. I think it's a good time to do that now.
Okay, yeah, let's do that now before we get into the chat Q&A. So I'll just put it on the screen. You want me to just put it on the screen now, full screen then, and then you can kind of explain what's going on here? Okay, so I'm going to throw this up here. Right there, I'll cover myself with it, put it on the left-hand side. And why don't you walk us through what we're looking at here?
So now, here, let me make sure I'm looking at the same thing. Yeah, look at the same thing, cool. So this is a new unique item coming for 1.1. If you look in the bottom right corner, first off, this is where I always start looking at uniques, is the level requirement that it has, because that has such a big implication for the legendary system and how that's going to play out. So this is a level 6 unique one-handed sword. I know it looks pretty big. It looks like a two-hander. It's a one-hander. So it's a unique one-handed sword that's going to be great for any strength or attunement character. So it's very hybrid design. So it's 1 melee damage per 2 attunement and 1 spell damage per 2 strength. And then there's some ranges on these other ones below, but the ranges aren't listed here. So it's a chance to cast Smite on melee hit, and chance to cast Smite at 2 additional targets when you cast it directly, +2 to all attributes. So you get a little bit of that melee and spell damage from those +2 to all attributes right there in the item as well, which is nice. But I think there's going to be a lot of room for some interesting legendary versions of this that come out, which I'm really excited to see. Self-cast Smite is one of those things that we very rarely see. But it is something that people do a lot while leveling as well. So I think this is going to be a very, very powerful leveling sword. There's a few leveling weapons that are two-handed that are really, really strong right now. And there's a couple one-handers as well, but I think this is going to be a really strong addition to the one-handed leveling sword repertoire. And I think there's going to be room for it a little bit later too.
Yeah, it's actually kind of hype because I like Paladin. That's
nice.
what I played Smite on the start, so that's probably going to be something I'm going to use there. All right,
like
so
I do have a question on that one though, because I realized something that I'm not sure is on other items. Why is the tip of the sword outside of the box? Is that on other items as well?
It's starting to become something that we do. So we did a bit of a UI glow up on our tooltips. And one of the things that we did is it lets the art is allowed to burst out of the item frame now.
Okay. So I haven't seen it before then. It's new.
I don't know if that's new 1.1 or 1.0, but yeah, it's pretty new.
Okay.
Kind of like it.
I had to ask.
Yeah, there are other ones that do that, right? Like I was pretty sure I'd seen that before. I think that looks kind of cool. That's a good looking item.
I know there are lots of other items that do that. I can't remember if that was a 1.1 thing or a 1.0 thing. I think it's a 1.0 thing. I think we've had that for a patch.
So, but it's okay. It's just a tip.
All right, so now we're into the Q&A portion here. And once again, if you got questions, leave them in chat. EHG's grabbing them. We got a pretty good amount of these. So, guys, we would just kind of go back and forth, rapid fire. You can go as long or as short as each one of these questions as you really want. We got plenty of time still, it looks like. So, the very first one is, was Rune Master inspired by Invoker from Dota 2 at all?
Yeah, so the initial pitch for this, someone came into chat. We're doing big Rune Master pitches. Everyone's just like, go away, make a version of Rune Master yourself, come back, and we'll compare and see what we have and discuss and debate and talk about and everything like that. And someone came back, never having played Dota 2 before, with Invoker, basically. And we're like, that's Invoker. They're like, what's that? And I'm like, no, it's the Magicka game. And they're like, what's that? I'm like, no, it's the Gauntlet Legend Gauntlet Legends mage. And so there's a lot of other games that do use very similar systems. And we definitely looked at how those other games played in order to like nail down the what felt good about those systems, what felt bad about those systems, to really nail down the gameplay patterns. But the initial idea actually was uninspired by Invoker, even though it is so similar.
It was my first thought when I played it, but it worked out really well, especially on the Other question we have is, are there any classes, masteries, or skills going to be the main focus on being reworked due to performance or low popularity?
I mean, I think it's a combination of those things and other stuff too. It's like, I think the low popularity is more of a symptom of the problems, so to speak. So we don't really just straight look at like, oh, this one, not many people are playing this, so it gets buffs. It's not quite as simple as that. I think it's like, we're getting feedback that people aren't enjoying playing this one, so we're gonna look at it and see how we can make it more fun. But yeah, it's like we do use some data to, I guess, direct our attention, but not necessarily direct our actions.
Next one on the list is the dungeon system getting reworked at all in Cycle 2?
There's some nice there's some quality of life updates to it, but I wouldn't call rework. It's very similar. We are looking at the way that you progress through the dungeon and the way that it randomizes the layout. That is it hasn't been finished for 1.1, unfortunately, but that is on the to-do list big time.
Won't putting a cap on everything make it so that people won't try as hard to come up with OP builds because there's no point in coming up with something more powerful?
Yeah, that's a big reason why we haven't put a cap on them.
There's your simple answer. Okay, next chat question. Chase items, when? Question mark. So are we looking uber rare type situation at any point?
Chase items are such a fickle, fine line little thing to get right. It's so hard because we put items in the game where it's like, good luck, you'll never get one, but it's possible. And people are like, we hate this.
Yeah.
And then we're like, all right, everyone can get it now. And everyone's like, where's the chase items though? We're like, okay, well, somewhere in between those two is the sweet spot. I think there's going to be some items that are coming from Pinnacle. I can say its name, Aberoth now. Woohoo! It's been a while since I haven't been able to say the name. So Aberoth drops will have some chasey things there that are. I think that's the key part about it. Really is having them be powerful but not build enabling is a really key part of chase items. I think in a lot of cases where they're really fun for most people.
Will Harbinger bosses take place in a specific arena, or they pop up in the current area you're in? You mentioned like Gone, they would be on the top side.
The Harbingers are in the same arena that you fought the boss in.
And are they planning to be harder than timeline bosses?
Yep.
That was the next
Did
question.
I wouldn't say like. So I should clarify that they're not like crazy harder, but they are like it's a little bit harder. Like it's expected that if you just beat that Thailand boss, you should be also able to beat that Harbinger, because it's spawning right away. So it's like almost like an extended fight.
Okay. Let's see. Did EHG ever contemplate making magic items be able to roll higher tiers than rares at the same item levels like D2?
Yes, we did think about that quite a bit, and the way our crafting system works, where you can just like add tiers onto items, it kind of breaks that relationship, because you can turn a magic item into a rare item, and so we've kind of tried to capture that magic a little bit with exalted items, I guess, is the way we've kind of tried to have a similar feeling, at least, because there are certain affixes in D2 that just like can't exist on rare items, but they can exist on magic items. So you'd be like, oh, best in slot gloves are actually a magic set of gloves because they can have a higher attack speed roll for Amazons and things like that. But it doesn't quite translate well with our crafting system, unfortunately.
Next chat question. Are there any items / mods that are going to be removed with the next cycle? If yes, do they stay in Legacy?
So the way that our item system updates, it does, so unique items get just like force updated. You won't see a legacy version of a unique.
Okay.
The only time we do have like a legacy item situation is when an affix gets moved from an item. So like if it's like, attack speed can't appear on gloves anymore or something like that, and you have a pair of gloves with attack speed on them, that attack speed gets sealed as a sealed affix below, and the slot opens up. I don't think any affix. I don't think that should happen to any items in 1.1. I don't think.
Next question is, in general, how's everyone at EHG feel about the first cycle?
I mean, really, really good. I think the amount of people we had playing was incredible, and like just blown away by the reception and the volume of people that were playing, and the feedback we got was amazing and things like that. And I think that it's really shown us that we've got something that is I think it has legs. I think we have something that's got it's got the ability to go the distance and become something that's really like in 5-10 years, people are still saying like when's the next update for Last Epoch coming? I think that's what it showed us.
Speaking of the volume of people, the next chat question is, are you guys prepared for when the people rejoin, come back playing again, better basically than the 1.0 release? I think they're referring to the servers there.
Yeah, I mean, we've from 1.0 release and like the weeks after that to now, like in that gap, we've changed so much with our networking stack, just like top to bottom. There's been either replacements for systems or major adjustments for systems. There's all sorts of stuff we've done to improve that performance and that experience, and I'm sure it won't be absolutely perfect, but the difference is significant, from like, so the base way we've like communicated across the network has changed to like even the server providers are different, like it's the whole pipeline has had adjustments and improvements, and it's gonna be a lot better than it was, for sure.
Good to hear. The next question says LP for set types. We already covered that, so I'm going to jump to the next one because the answer to that was no. This is a question for all three of us, and it is our favorite NPC. Start with you, Mike.
Minimus, the dog. There's a little dog you can meet, and one day you'll be able to pet it. I promise that will happen.
I guess I'll go. It's going to be the new Pinnacle boss. Probably, I would assume.
That's an NPC, yeah, that counts.
I've been kind of excited for Pinnacle bosses since the launch of the game. I was thinking that was the thing that was I felt like it was missing the most. So for me, I'm going to go with the new content, baby. How about you, GHAZZY?
I kind of like Formosus. I don't know.
All right.
Tickles me a little bit. I like to fight. I like I don't know. I just like him. Maybe because I've done him too many times. Might be that.
Farm a specific item?
The low life stuff.
Okay. And this next question, I don't know what this means, so I'm just going to ask it, and maybe you do, Mike. Will there be a mysterious chat gem?
Ooh, Yeah, no, there are no mysterious chat gems. I've pitched putting something like this in a few times, just as like a joke. I I don't think we have any plans to put something like that in, but I will not stop trying.
All right, there's your answer.
Next question is, any plans on other ranking-based content like the arenas, like leaderboards?
Any sorry, ranking based content?
Yeah, like arenas have a leaderboard. Is there going to be a leaderboard or ranking in some
Oh.
other parts of the game?
Yeah. Yes. We don't, not for 1.1. We do have plans to expand where what the ladders are. I think there's so I really think that there's room for like weird ladders. And we're still building out systems to make the like the way we convey that information a little bit better to players. But even just so like I think this ties into you know when you start a PoE league and there's like an announcement that shows up and it's like so and so was the first to enter this zone, so and so was the first to
Yeah.
kill this boss. Like that stuff's awesome, and we need something. We need stuff like that to happen, and we need. I think we need more like different avenues for people to compete on the ladder because not everyone likes the arena really, and having other ways to be like whether it's like highest corruption to complete a monolithon, whether it's like fastest pinnacle boss kill or something like that. Like I think there's ladders to be had there that are a lot of fun, and I think would drive like community contests and things like that, where people have the option of like running these events themselves in the community, where it's like you because you have this official ranking, you can have these contests a lot more fairly, I guess. Yeah.
So
So there's room for it. No specifics yet. Sorry.
Gotcha. Okay, so the next one's kind of, I guess, somewhat similar. It's speaking of challenges here. Is there any plans for like reward cosmetics related to challenges in the game? Like PoE has this, D4 has it with their season journey, for instance. So is there plans around cosmetic rewards for achievements?
Yes. We don't have any in 1.1, but we are that is definitely on the table. That is looking forward is I think something that people that's feedback we've been getting from a lot of people that they really want, and so we have definitely heard you, and we're looking into how best we can do that. So yeah, on the table.
Okay, nice.
Got a question from my chat as well saying, secret B level when?
We don't have one in the game right now. There's not one coming in 1.1.
But
I think along with the chat gem, it's you gotta put something like that in the game, right?
You know,
You can't not at this point, right?
Speaking of bees, maybe you'll hate me for asking this question, but so what was the story with the bees and the bee referrals? Because I remember just streaming it at the launch. At the launch, the whole chat is just full of people trying to refer for the bees. So when was the decision made where your guys like everyone's getting the damn bee? Like we just gotta get rid of this bee situation. What happened there?
This was such a like good intentions doing just weird things, and we should have seen it coming. It was going to happen. I don't know why we didn't. It was you had to refer if you referred someone and said like basically like, hey, this person told me about the game, then the person who did the referring gets points to get some bees as a pet that'll follow you around, and it just turned into, because anyone could refer anyone who already had the game as well, it just turned into, hey, use my referral, give me the bees type thing. Yeah, it was
the pyramid scheme of bees, man. You needed 3 of them, and there's only so many people. It got pretty hilarious pretty quickly.
Yeah, and then we're just like, you know what, this was a bad idea. Never mind. Bees for everyone. And you know, maybe it's something we can revisit in the future, but the way we did it and how it shook out was hilarious and a mistake.
It was a good meme. It'll carry forward as a meme into the future. All right.
I mean, the worst thing that happened was we ended up giving out MTX to everyone, so it's like, it's not really that bad of a situation.
All's well that ends well, baby. Okay, so we're moving on here towards the next question. What are we here? Okay, so will there be any melee changes to make it more smooth to play? That's the next question from chat.
Yeah. I mean, this is the whole melee versus range debate rages strong to this day. And we especially, I think this especially comes up when we're talking about boss fights in especially like the Pinnacle boss fight and things like that. We look um at like how the fight plays from different perspectives very carefully. And there are certain abilities the boss has that it will only do if you're at range. There's certain abilities it will only do if you're at melee and things like that. There's certain things that it'll do to draw you into melee. And so like there's it is something that we pay very close attention to. And yeah, so there's I don't have a good like example of like a specific change we're making to melee right now that I can just call up type thing, but there are definitely things that we have done specifically to make to bring that gap closer together, especially when talking about the Pinnacle boss fight.
Okay.
Let's jump into the next question real quick. We don't take up too much time. Should we expect a mid-cycle patch to address things that are currently in progress that just won't make it for 1.1?
Yep, there's a few things that, I don't want to get your hopes up on specific things, but there are a couple things that you'll see get slipped in where it's just like, oh, this just didn't quite make it through QA, or this didn't quite make it to QA at all, just before the patch. And it's something that we were like, oh, we really want to get this in. And so we will slip a few things in the first few weeks. If it's something that makes sense. Yeah.
There's a question in relation to inventory management. You know how you got to like hit the button, move things over, etc. Any plans for quality of life changes upcoming for that?
Yes. Speaking of things that didn't quite make it into 1.1, yeah, there are some really good examples of like ways to make filling your stash up less annoying, and like reducing that time you spend in your stash, and like when you're this inventory full of stuff and you're like, I want to dump everything to my inventory, I'm just gonna dump it there and sort it later, and giving you the tools where you don't have to sort it later because it just sorts as you dump it in. That sort of thing is something that we're really interested in doing, and we've got a very close to ready system for it, but it's not quite there yet.
I'm going to throw out just one question that I know I continually came in before the podcast has started. People were asking about two things in particular. Any plans around consoles? It seems like every time we do one of these, people are always going to ask about console. And then Steam Deck in particular. And I did see what triggered the memory of this is I saw one question in here asking about maybe cloud saves for offline mode for things like Steam Deck, etc. So do you have anything to share around these?
Yeah, so Steam Deck cloud saves for offline should work already. That should already be a thing.
Okay.
As I'm saying that, I'm realizing what the problem might actually be is that Steam Deck runs on Linux, and if you're playing on Windows, the cloud save from Steam may not sync between Windows and Linux.
Probably what's
for that.
On.
So yeah, so that might be what's blocking that. Oh, someone's just like, it does not. So I'm wrong. We don't have the feature ticked apparently. Okay, cool. So this is actually something that we need to do still. We are working on Steam Deck improvements, and we are working on getting that little Steam Deck approved tick mark because a lot of people are playing on Steam Deck already. And I think the volume of people that we found playing on Steam Deck, we were one of the most played games on Steam Deck in May.
I bet.
And I was like, what? It doesn't even work on Steam Deck. And people are like, yeah, we got it to work. Deal with it. I'm like, okay, great. And so we are actively working on making it be officially functional with Steam Deck. And that's just through like optimization stuff we've done and a few control updates and things like that. So we are working on that right now. Having the cloud save sync, someone just told me, between Steam Deck and regular is something that we are actively working on right now.
Nice.
And consoles are further out, but they're on our radar. Sure. We do know that we want to go to consoles at some point. As a studio, we've never released a console game. We don't have an existing relationship with Sony or Microsoft. We don't have dev kits. There's a lot of things we have to do before we can start actually pursuing a console release of the game. You can see I made my own little box for fun because I wanted one. But yeah, so it's on the radar, but not yet for consoles.
The offline mode discussion brought up one of my own questions here, which I'm sure you guys Well, actually, I don't know if you could see. Well, maybe you could see data. I was just asking. So, offline mode. Did you guys find that this ended up being something that was used significantly more than expected? Because offline mode, I know there was the the launch thing, so people were using offline mode because of the service, etc. But outside of that, and the Steam Deck and all that, is offline mode seemed to be a pretty popular success for the game?
I think so. I think it's one of those things that we agonized over if we were going to do it, if we are going to be able to do it, how we're going to support it, things like that. And it does, it does drive a little bit of controversy on how we're handling it specifically.
Sure.
But I think overall, it's been an incredibly positive thing for the game, I think. And like just like every once in a while, I'll see a post pop up on Reddit or something like that of like, just got off a 10-hour plane ride, got to play Last Epoch the whole time because there's offline mode. I'm like, yeah, that's great. That's awesome. So it's cool to see, and I'm really happy we have it. It is it is really difficult to maintain. It's really difficult to we're designing things and we're changing stuff, and it's a lot of extra work to keep it there and keep it functional and everything. But it's so worth it. I think it's been a great part of the game, and I think it's not completely unique for us, but I think it's one of the key features that lets us stand out from a lot of other games too.
Not many of these games really do offline mode, man. It's like I own a Steam Deck. I think they're awesome. I had an Asus ROG Ally. I was sponsored by them for a bit, so I had the same thing too. And the amount of games that you can actually get there, like high quality, replayable, you can put 1,000 hours in new types of games like Last Epoch. There's not like an absolute ton of these for the Steam Deck, So that was one of the big selling points for me when I heard you guys started adding on Steam Deck and it has offline mode. It's like that, for me personally, that's actually pretty cool. But all right, I'll move on to GHAZZY here. I won't monopolize the conversation.
Oh, that's all good. I'm going into my own little niche corner here. I'm going to ask about from the chat, by the way, not my question. Uh-huh. I just want to point it out. Sure. When will we get a Void Centipede summon?
A Void Centipede summon.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing.
Not my question. Good opinion.
So we don't have a Void themed summoner class right now. So I think we'd have to have a Void themed summoner class. That'd be a good place for it to show up.
Give me a call future mastery. I can give you some ideas.
do you want like a Void, because everyone's telling us we have to do Barbarian next for Primalist, so you can't put it there, right? It's got to be somewhere else.
4th mastery class.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah,
which skills for the Necro.
Oh, you want a Void Centipede on a new an Acolyte Void Summoner?
Yeah, that would be nice because the Acolyte lacks Void skills. By the way,
that's true. There's no Void mastery on the Acolyte.
We're getting close to the end of these questions here, so last chance to tag one and put one in. We're kind of we're getting on the downhill here, wrapping up. But there's a philosophy question from the chat, which I think is kind of interesting. So I'll read it here. Last Epoch is like a middle ground between the more casual and simpler ARPGs like Diablo and the more demanding and complicated ones like PoE. Do you guys intend on staying on not too complicated, but also not too simple? They're saying you're going to ride the line right in the middle there, or are you thinking as you add more cycles, it's going to go the one way or another? What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that I think the depth and complexity levels that we're at right now, we really like where we are, and we'd like to continue to be in that range. We like a little bit more complex, a little bit less complex, a little bit more deep, a little bit less deep. Like in that general area where we are, I think is really solid, and we're really pleased with where we are in that range. And it could shift a little bit here and there, so it's not like a hard line. And we don't really, the way we look at it internally, we don't really peg ourselves against like D4 or PoE in where we're sitting in that depth and complexity discussion. But I guess like if both of them stay where they are, then yeah, we'll stay in between them. Like if Diablo gets a ton of complexity added to, all of a sudden we're not going to like up our complexity in response or something like that. But we are very happy with where we're sitting.
Okay.
Fair. I had a question regarding, we talked about this earlier with the corruption pushing. So the question for chat was, any plans on addressing pushing corruption and group play? Specifically?
Yes. Details on exactly how that's going to play out will be in the next big blog post we have. But yes, I'll say it's friendlier. It's easier to do multiplayer monoliths and progress through monoliths yourself. Because right now it's you get the monolith kills, like the boss kills, but you don't get the corruption progression right now. And it's kind of problematic in situations where um, you can end up with a character that is very overpowered for the content you're doing when you break out of that party and go solo, which is a problem, and we are looking at addressing it.
Follow-up to that
We
would
want.
be, are there any plans at addressing the insanity that comes with people having a group of supporters playing to push thousands of corruption in a group play?
Yeah, so the rate that you individually push corruption at doesn't go up because you're in a party. So like you won't like you can you go faster because there's just more of you and you can synergize your team together. So you go faster in that sense. Um, but you don't go dramatically fast. Like there's nothing in that says like, okay, well now that you have 4 people, you get an extra 2 times corruption gain or something like that. We don't have that. Um, yeah, is that what you mean?
I was talking about the fact that group players could push significantly higher with a drastic difference between solo versus group play.
Oh, just like because they're stronger.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this, I, we try to curtail that based on the group scaling of the. So when you get more people in the party, the enemies get harder, right? So
Yeah.
that's how we try and curtail that a little bit. But yeah, you do get higher in a party. Um, I don't think that's really. I don't think we've taken big steps to change that this patch.
Okay.
There's some abilities that synergize extremely well in parties that have been toned down. So there's some mechanical changes like that.
Yeah.
So there's a question related to the progression loop of Rune Ascension. So I'm going to read here. So the Rune of Ascension, the one that generates a unique item of the same base type, that rune kind of killed progression for this chatter. The process of just farming longbows over and over again, spamming those runes to try to get LP felt like a cheesy way to progress. However, it's extremely efficient. What are your thoughts on this progression loop?
Well, first off, they don't have to be longbows specifically. It could be any bow. So heads up on that. Um, I would. I also think that it's not necessarily the most efficient, especially not anymore, the most efficient way of doing that either. So there's you're gonna have access to, especially like the Nemesis system is gonna be another new way to get uniques, and like so interacting with these like with COF and with the new Harbinger system and things like that, and or the I assume it's not Merchant's Guild if they're spamming runes or yeah runes to get the item, because if it was Merchant's Guild they just go buy it type thing. Um, but yeah, I think there's more. We're adding in more variants on ways you can get these items, and I think that's gonna be the key thing, is that just having new ways of doing these things so that organic play ends up being the most efficient way.
Supporter packs coming with 1.1?
Yep, there's new packs coming. The old packs are staying as well. Um, yep.
Does 1.1 bring any graphical updates?
Yes, but not like, I wouldn't say like a gigantic change or anything like that. Like there's lighting tweaks that we've done. That's something we do a lot. And like there's certain models that have been updated. So like enemies that were like really old models that we did, we replaced them, things like that. There's no major systemic graphics update like we had in 1.0. We are working on an engine upgrade right now that will give us access to some new technologies and new tools like super sampling stuff and things like that that are new fancy things with video cards that they can do that you couldn't leverage with old versions of Unity. But we are getting to a newer version that we can start using those things.
So we're on the last few questions here, and we're going to wrap it up here. So we have, will there be a button to unlearn all passives at once? What's the question asked?
Not in 1.1, sorry. I know we've been talking about that for so long. At one point, someone came out and said, wasn't me. Someone came out and said that we're going to do it, no problem. Then we went back to our design team. We're like, oh, we can't do it. And so it's.
But it's on the radar. It's something you guys are okay with the concept of.
We're very aware that it's something that people really want. And I don't think there's a philosophic reason not to add it.
Okay. Excellent.
Can we get any info on skill reworks? There are some outliers, like I mentioned earlier, such as dancing strikes and multi-strike.
Yeah, I don't have any specific ones that I'm allowed to spoil yet. But I can say the ones that are really lacking right now have received more attention than the ones that are not really lacking. But like there's hundreds of balance changes, buffs, nerfs all over the place. Yeah.
And is it,
Oh,
oh, sorry, go on to me, cut you off there.
no, that was my bad.
Oh, okay. So this, I think you touched on this just before, but this is the next question on the list here. It says, does 1.1 bring any graphical updates? You said there's an engine update, or there anything else coming with it?
So the engine update's not a 1.1. That'll be in the future.
Okay.
So there's no major like systemic graphical updates coming in 1.1.
Okay.
But there's lots of little things. So the game looks the game does look nicer. Like if you put them side by side and compare them, you'll be like, oh yeah, I can clearly see this looks nicer. If you played for 2 months at launch and you've been gone for 2 months and you come back, it might not immediately stick out as, hey, there's dramatic changes.
I'm assuming that's something you guys are going to continue doing. Like as the cycles come out, you're going to be doing little changes to constantly update and tweak it. Okay. I think we got,
yeah.
You want to ask the last one, GHAZZY? And I think we got through all the chat questions here.
Well, last one is basically for you, Mike. Very personal question for from launch 1.1. This is a personal question from me, not at all from MP, by the way. And that is, what are you looking forward the most to for the next coming 3 months of the cycle 1.1?
It's the second time we've asked him this one.
Well, it's worded a little differently. Specifically for 1.1, I've got a friend.
Wait, we asked this already. Did I miss this? Am I crazy?
Oh, well, I guess we said besides the 1.1 launch. I guess it's
yeah, I'm talking about 1.1.
You're right.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was different.
All right,
it's different.
Okay, you're right. You got me.
Yeah.
I mean, this is like, I've got a friend who's really busy during launch and hasn't played much at all since we launched the game. Played a bunch in like 0.7, like really long ago. And he's like, 1.1 comes out, I'm coming, I'm playing. So I've got a play date with a friend who I haven't played games with for a long time.
Hell yeah.
That we're gonna play 1.1 together. That's what I'm most excited about.
That's good. Man, you got me scared there. I was like, am I asking the same question? I've done this once before. I don't want to do it again.
I know. I was thinking. I was like,
it's similar. No. It's different.
It's similar.
I had a different answer. I'm good.
Right,
it was in 1.1. Thank you, Mike. Thank you.
All right,
First
bad.
we had a little dance together at the start. And I'm getting synced here, me and Mike. I like him.
So I have something I want to say. We're wrapping up here, so I just want to say, thanks for the you guys sent a hoodie and like a keyboard mat and stuff. The hoodie is really, really comfortable. It's actually the most comfortable like piece of clothes that company has ever sent me. And the mat's pretty cool too. That's the mat they sent. So I wanted to say thanks for that. I thought that was pretty nice, you guys, to send that as well.
You're welcome. Glad you'll enjoy it. I had to give mine to my mom. She saw it and she's like, I want it now. All right, Mom, fine.
It's a good color, I like the color purple, color of royalty there. But July 9th, the Harbingers of Ruin come out. So everybody, what time specifically on July 9th do we?
We've got it's on our website. Usually it's 11 a.m. Central Time. So it comes out in 7 days, 18 hours, 33 minutes, and 53 seconds from right now. We also do have summer sale going on right now on Steam. So if you want to pick it up cheap before it launches and give it a try, it is on there right now as well. I think it's 20% off? Question mark. It's also on if anyone has a Nexus store that any of your streamers. GHAZZY's got one. Yep. They are same sales, they run simultaneously on both Nexus and Steam. It's exactly the same. So no matter where you get it, you get a Steam key, all the same stuff.
Nice. There you go. All right, pick it up, boys. If you are looking for a game to play, it's on summer sale. I appreciate you taking the time one more time in another one of these and answering all the info and leaking the IDO sets. That's great. Clip it and ship it, boys.
Yeah.
Now I'm gonna go take that back to the design team and like actually deliver on it, right?
Yeah. Boys, we gotta make this happen. I fucked up.
You gotta save me.
Any last
Well, thanks for coming.
questions, comments, questions for us, or anything, Mike, or anything before we send you on out? The last chance here.
What build are you gonna play? Do you think sight unseen on the patches? What are you eyeing? What class?
Well, I played
For
Smite
1.1.
Pally, and I liked Smite Pally, and I am a simple man, so I'll probably play it again because we have the new. I'll flash it on screen for the people that missed it before. We have the new item, so I'll probably try this out because it's what I literally played last time, and I like Paladin. This time I'll try not to delete my character.
So sorry, we fixed that.
I'm in a kind of a weird boat here. Is either I'm gonna do a Stygian Cole, very likely lich, or I'm gonna play something I can't say without breaking NDA.
Oh, I'll take it. That works.
It's on brand at least. Not breaking NDA here.
I have a feeling. Yeah.
You have a feeling, yeah.
I know. I think I know what you're talking about.
Okay.
All right. Well, that's
Wonderful.
going to do it. Thanks, man. Appreciate your time. Thanks, GHAZZY, for co-hosting with me as well. And shout out to all the questions in the chat. There's a lot of good ones. You answered about 1 billion questions today, so I appreciate you being generous enough to answer all those. And I hope you have a wonderful day, my dude.
Thank you very much. Great to see you.
Bye-bye, everybody.